After all the warnings, millions of truck buyers are deciding to keep old trusty trucks around and say no to all these new trucks. Latest statistics, according to Edmunds, shows that while the rest of the industry are selling cars, a lot of cars, subcompacts, compact SUVs, cars, hybrids, a lot of cars are selling very, very well right now. One genre that's not selling at all well, honestly, I can totally see why. It's full-size pickup trucks. Sure, while the compact pickup trucks are doing particularly well with the Rangers and of course the Ford Mavericks, as well as, the little Hondas, all those little trucks, Nissan Frontier, they're all selling very, very well. What's not selling are the full-size trucks like this. See, here I'm sitting in my old 2003 Ram 1500. It's not perfect. It's got a little rust on it. You know what? It makes a little funny noise when you first start it. But me, like millions of other buyers out there, are deciding to just continue fixing what they've got. They don't want to buy these new trucks. And the 2.5% of buyer increase on full-size trucks is a strong indication when we're seeing the rest of the industry up 28% increase in sales on subcompact and compact vehicles. The increase in the number of sales for full-size trucks, brand new for 2026 and 27, has barely touched the surface. I mean, we're at 2.5% increase, which is almost a wash. In other words, the growth is just not there. If we look back from 2026, the beginning of the year, to 2025 to 2024, it's almost flatlined. That's right. A lot of buyers are deciding not to buy these full-size trucks, and for good reason. Have you heard about some of the problems? You can't even find a reliable full-size truck today. Yeah, believe it or not. Now, I'm not opposed totally to technology and moving forward and trying different things. But when you do a search and you research like I've got and I've done time and time again, I've often looked, even with my old Ram here, opportunities to possibly even change this up, trade it in, look for something fresh and new. And yeah, it'd be fun to drive something that is, new and interesting, maybe has comfy seats, maybe has a little bit more power, great for towing. And it'd be great to get into something like that. But there's a hard reality, and it's the overall reliability that we're finding in a lot of these cars today and trucks that just isn't there. There's an overload and abundance of technology that is absolutely crushing and demolishing the durability of modern vehicles. But just go look around. I mean, I start searching the internet, and I start looking online, and I start browsing, and I talk to mechanics. I've got friends in the business. I've got mechanic buddies. I've got folks that are general managers at multiple different dealerships, and the feedback is always the same. It doesn't matter what brand. If it's a Ford, there's a whole plethora of issues. If it's a General Motors product, lots of challenges. Ram, Stellantis, the new versions of these, very problematic too. Now, there are exceptions, and there's always little sweet spots everywhere and in the industry, but it always seems that you're sacrificing something. Good engine, bad transmission. Good transmission, maybe bad electrics. Expensive maintenance, or maybe you just can't get it serviced because there's some inherent issue. Parts shortages. There seems to be something with every single vehicle. Okay, a lot of people are thinking, okay, let's just go with something common, something popular. Maybe, you think about a lot of the trucks now. Most loyal truck owners and buyers buy one of the big three, right? The Ford, of course, the GM, and of course the Ram. That's typical, right? If you're looking for a full-size truck, most are either looking for, gas, V8s, maybe even stepping up into the HD trucks, into the diesels. But a lot of times now these vehicles are all full of problems. Ford, of course, we've heard about a lot of their 2.7s and 3-liter EcoBoost engines. Problems, that's right. Intake valves getting chewed up. Why? Because the heads of the valves were known to come off. Sure, while that only impacted certain variants and a certain batch, the point is it happened. And then there's transmission issues with Ford too. And we can't forget about things like cam phasers or the wet belt situations and everything. Ford even sells a 5-liter Coyote, and that's probably the best thing that they've got. But then you're still dealing with a wet belt and you've got transmissions that are a little bit soft. So there's always something, there's always a bit of a caveat. Okay, you don't want to buy a Ford? How about a General Motors? Okay, General Motors, yeah. L87, heard of that one, the 6.2 liter V8? Everybody's heard about that. Now we're up to, 877,000 recalls because of catastrophic engine failures or the potential of it, because the crankshaft possibly out of round, not properly polished. Some of the suppliers coming from places like Mexico, maybe the quality control isn't exactly where a lot of, expected manufacturers would like, but it's just not a thing. It's just not consistent like we used to see with some of the older engines, An old 5.7 from back in the 70s and 80s, it would just start and run and go for 300,000, 400,000 kilometers all day. The body would be rusted. You'd be sick of the truck long before the engine and transmission ever gave out. But that's not really the same anymore, because the L87 in the 6.2 liter V8s is something that we're seeing almost 1 million vehicles pulled into the recall because of these engine failures or potential for engine failures. Now I grew up on a farm and I loved the GMs. We had GMs in the family through and through, and I've always loved them. I've appreciated the brand, but I struggle with this because now even the transmissions have problems. Okay, fine. You want to step it down, go with the 5.3s. Well, guess what? Their cylinder deactivation system now is taking out lifters, rockers. That's right, even the 5.3s are having problems. Again, common denominator, we also have transmission issues potentially there and a pile and plethora of recalls. We won't even talk about some of the electrics and technology issues that we see in all of these brands, but put that beside us. You know what? Okay, maybe a screen glitches out or maybe we get a weird light. At least, does the truck get you from A to B? Not if it starts developing a misfire because it just broke a lifter. Yeah, that's not an uncommon issue. And sure, there's workarounds like plugging in a dongle that does essentially a bypass on the cylinder deactivation. On the black market has equipment that can do that. But see, these are workarounds. And it's the EPA that's driving the need for fuel economy, better emissions, and all of that. But these manufacturers now are putting the brunt of the issues on the consumer. The consumer has to pick up the broken parts. The manufacturers just have to somehow make these engines run for 3 years. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't matter because it's on you, the owner. See, okay, fine. General Motors, great. Beautiful trucks. But even the diesels, the Duramax, they've had all kinds of fuel module problems, transmission problems. I mean, even with the Allison, things are just not what they used to be. Overheating issues. And of course, we move over to the Rams. Now they've got the new Hurricane. Yeah, that's a great engine, so they say. Some people are loving it. Time will tell. It's still fairly new, so it's kind of really hard to criticize at this point. Finally, they moved into a ZF 8-speed automatic, so the transmission at least is solid. But it's still sort of unknown. See, it's still sort of uncharted territory with the inline 6. See, because it's a new engine, turbocharged, wastegates, a lot of tech going on under the hood too, and time will tell. I mean, we know with the old 5.7 Hemis, Hemi tick. Too much idle time meant you'd start developing a tick in the lifters, and next thing you know, because of poor oiling to the top end of the engine, you start developing engine issues, misfires, and in the worst case scenario, catastrophic failures. See, I love the Rams. I've got an old Ram here, and I got a 4.7, then they had the 5.7. I think back in the old days, my old man had one of the best, the 318 cubic inch. That's right. Those were workhorses. But they don't make them like that anymore. Along comes these new Hemis and all these new trucks, and honestly, they're just not quite the same. Then after somewhere in that 2012, 2014, things even got worse with electric systems. They started introducing equipment like the TIPM, the totally integrated power module, which when that fails, all of a sudden your tachometer and lights and glitches, things start glitching out. The worst part is that electronics ends up costing you thousands of dollars because most people don't know how to troubleshoot that in their garage, so they just take it down to the dealer. Yeah, that's a big problem. So it's still very much up in the air which of the big three have a gas engine that is suitable for long life. Unlike what we saw back in the day, the old engines kind of just did. The old 318s, the old 350s from the Chevy, and even the Fords had some great engines too. But, even on the diesel side, I mean, you look at the Duramax, I spoke of that. Even the Rams, not so sure that they're that great yet either. The old 5.9s were bulletproof. They were amazing. But the 5.9s are no longer. Now we're into 6.7s. They have these heater systems, this grid heater that can come apart, and hardware winds up in the combustion chamber. Next thing you know, you blow an engine. Tens of thousands of dollars. It's not like the Cummins of old, especially when now the lift pump, there is a generation of 4.2 that now could catastrophically implode and send shrapnel through the fuel system, taking out the pumps, the fuel lines, the injectors, and in some cases the engine. It's a sad state. It's not like the Cummins of old. And sure, while there are workarounds and some bypasses and there's an update, sure, there's a 4.2 on the update for that particular pump, or a 3. Backdating it can actually get you a durable pump again. The point is, none of these are necessarily as durable as they used to be. And so, if you're a consumer, where do you go? You either fix up old Betsy here, like this one, my old 4.7 V8, which makes a little funny noise and spits out the odd check engine light because of an oxygen sensor, but guess what? Hell be damned if this thing doesn't start in minus 30 in the middle of winter. Yep, it does everything I need for a truck to do. Hauls a load, pulls a trailer, tows the boat. I've got room for 6 people in this vehicle because I got the flip-up console. I don't have that center fancy console. This one's literally a 6-seater. It's perfect. It's simple. Most things I can fix myself. Water pumps and oxygen sensors and all kinds of other components. And that's what we're starting to lose, is the right to repair. See, that's the other aspect. As a lot of these new trucks come out, people are recognizing the whole concept of the right to repair is going bye-bye. We're losing the ability. We're losing to be in touch with wrenching on our own trucks. They're becoming far too complex, requiring software that only the dealers have access to and training that only the dealers also have access to. A lot of people are just relegated to taking their vehicle into the dealer and just hope for the best, song and a dance, and just pray that it's not a $6,000 invoice. See, this is just where the entire industry is headed. Now, hang on. Okay, you're all saying, well, what about Toyota? You haven't mentioned them once. Okay, you want a full-size truck? What about the Tundra? You remember the old 5.7 Tundra? What an absolute meatball. I love that. Cherry on the cake. Heavy on fuel, but they were absolutely bulletproof. There's actually cases and examples of them going over 1 million miles. Yeah, they're durable. They're workhorses. And you could find them also in older models of the Lexus, like the LX 570s. And it was an absolute bulletproof engine. But like every manufacturer, they're moving forward and never look back. They created a new engine called the V35A in the Toyota Land. It's a 3.4 liter V6. And it promised more power, better economy, better towing. Everything was improved. Except one thing. The quality control, apparently, allegedly, hasn't necessarily been figured out. Because going back to the early generations of the Tundra, like the 22s, the 23s, and even allegedly some 24s, time will tell if we're out of the woods yet, but I've always said, I need to see 3 consecutive consistent years of quality with no problems before I'm sold. And we're not there yet. See, allegedly, there was metal particulate as a result of some of the machining that wound up finding its way through the oil passages and inside the engine, and it didn't get washed out properly. Wound up in the main bearings, takes out the bearings. Next thing you know, you have a catastrophic bearing failure. Might start as a knock, might start as a bit of a misfire, strange sounds, check engine light, or even worse, catastrophic engine failure. And there's been plenty of those. As a matter of fact, Toyota has issued recalls of over 100,000 vehicles with these engines that range from not just the Toyota Tundra, but the Lexus LX 600, and the latest addition to the recall list is the GX 550. I personally say, let's extend this to the LS 500 in Lexus, because that's a car that's on its last of a run, a production run, because that's at the end of life as well. You don't hear a lot about that, but I had struggled with the understanding that it's the same engine and it doesn't have the same problems. So time will tell. And as I'm sitting here before you, I would also struggle to see that there were no issues and no recalls issued directly for the Toyota Sequoia, which happens to carry the same engine. So again, time will tell. That's a newer model, lower production numbers. Time will show us whether that's a consistent issue or not. Now, some say the issues are sorted and it's a foregone conclusion because the 26s are clean and basically the 25s are too. But there's plenty of stories all over the forums that are indicating that this problem is not 100% cleaned up yet. Now, I'd like to wait and see what this has in store because I'm super excited about a twin-turbo V6 hybrid Toyota. We know that they know how to make hybrids. We know they know how to make engines that are reliable. So if they can put that combination together and put an engine in a truck that does it all reliably, I mean, I'll sign up. But what we've seen is nothing short of catastrophic failures, issues, problems across the board. Toyotas, to GMs, to Rams, to Fords, you name it. If it's not blown engines, rod bearing problems, cam phasers, wet cam belts and timing belts or oil pump systems, turbochargers, wastegates, direct fuel injection's a contributing factor now too, with, of course, you know it, carbon fouling. That's another big thing that's been creeping in there left, right, and center. The old port fuel injection, EFI, MPIs, they never had that issue. But now with direct fuel injection, they put the fuel under high pressure directly into the combustion chamber. Now you get this sort of buildup of carbon at the backside of the intake valves. And when you do that, eventually you lose performance, fuel economy, sometimes misfires, and the engines just don't run well. Then that starts plugging off. Next thing you know, you get oil in the PCVs, starts clogging off with carbon as well. All of a sudden now you start burning oil, you start misfiring, poor running, and again, catastrophic engine failures can exist in the worst, most neglected vehicles. So how do we struggle? Where did we get so far so badly, so quickly? I struggle to understand that. I love trucks. I mean, I love cars. I love getting behind the wheel of a sporty car with high performance that handles well around the corners. But sometimes you need a truck that needs to haul the family. You need to tow your toy, or you just need to clog around through winter. You just need that good, strong, versatile utility vehicle. And almost every household should have a pickup truck in it. I have my 2003 Ram 1500. The problem is, they don't make them like this anymore. Now, this truck's not perfect. Now, had I lived in Texas or Florida or California or New Mexico, this wouldn't have rust on it, and you wouldn't feel bad about throwing a new differential in it, maybe even a transmission. See, because all you're doing is swapping out components, it's easy to own forever. But the problem is, even these old trucks, eventually they rust and rot away, and then you've got to throw them out. So what do you do after that? What do I do when this truck is finally done? Like it's worn out, clapped out, rusted out. Where do I go from here? The problem, and the short answer is, I don't know. I just like to see what's going on. We're hearing new changes. We're hoping, keeping our fingers crossed, that the likes of Toyota, they finally figure out that 3.4. Let's hope. GM, they're advertising some new engines, including bringing back a new 5.7, a new variation of that old legendary engine from the 70s and 80s, but with a trick up its sleeve. It's not that's just direct fuel injected. It's actually got a combination direct and port fuel injection, means it's copying essentially Toyota's DS4 system, which allows the washing of the intake valves with the port fuel injection, because the direct fuel injection makes it run better, but the port fuel injection cleans it and prevents that carbon fouling. So it's very promising what the 5.7 looks like. Let's just hope that they get it right with the crankshaft, the rod bearings. There's no problems with the piston rings and some other weird anomaly. Hopefully the transmissions are sorted too, but let's be honest. With this change and influx of new tech means the ability to work, troubleshoot, diagnose, even basic servicing is becoming something of the past. I struggle with where things are headed. General Motors, of course, we know, they're essentially taking away your ability to choose just to drive off the grid. I mean, subscription services are becoming a big part of all of this conversation too. As we get into the new variations of trucks, even GM allegedly is pushing out the likes of Android Auto and Apple CarPlay so that they can replace it with their own in-house system so that they can now give you a free year or 2 years and then hit you with a subscription monthly service. Why? Well, BMW started it with navigation and heated seats. Why wouldn't GM do it? But this is where the market's going. More subscriptions, more hands-off servicing, more complexity means expensive repairs. I mean, Ford, you have to take that whole damn cab off the truck just to service a diesel. What is wrong with that picture? So after all the warnings and the scares and the catastrophic failures and the fact that we can't do anything on our vehicles ourselves anymore anyhow, and the future looks like even spying on us. A lot of these vehicles now mandates, we've seen it in Europe, and it's likely to slowly evolve into North America's market too, where your vehicle is going to determine whether you're capable of driving your own vehicle or whether it considers you incapable or stressed out or intoxicated. The decision is no longer going to be made up to you. The autonomy or self-autonomy that you have is be giving up to electronics and technology. That's another reason why a lot of people are electing to keep their old trucks. We can't forget about the obvious one as well. One more critical reason other than catastrophic failures and eyesight and spying is a simple cost. Right. They're expensive. I mean, now we're starting to see a basic pickup truck half-ton starts around $60,000, $70,000 in the Canadian market. I mean, it's not uncommon. Look at a Ram Tungsten, and those trucks now are upwards in that $130,000 for a half-ton. Diesel trucks, 100 grand plus all day long. So nothing's getting cheaper. And of course, compare that over with the cost of living, and most people only see a 2.5%, 3% wage increase year to year, where inflationary increases look more like 4 to 7%. And let's be honest, most of these car manufacturers, if they're not hit with tariffs, are smacking us with cost of living increases that exceed standard core inflation, i.e. expensive. So yes, a lot of people, millions of people have read the writing on the wall, taken the heeds, taken the warnings, and while it's sure nice to have a brand new truck, I'd love one too, and we'll see, maybe time will tell. But at this point, many people are just making that decision to say, nah, I'm good on the new trucks. I'm just going to keep my old truck running. And with that said, hey, feel free to go ahead and hit that membership. Yeah, you're going to get more background scenes, a little bit more impromptu. You're going to get a little icon. And even better yet, I'm going to promise to answer all of your questions quick and dirty, right to the point. And you're going to get more of the real deal. So definitely hit that membership. Check out a couple great videos. It helps the binge definitely as well. See you in the next one. Catch you all real soon, everybody. Bye-bye.